Hello friends, in this video I want to talk about the highs and lows that we experience in our life in response to an external situation. Usually we all have the tendency to chase the high or crave for the highs or hope for the highs, and we have an antagonistic relation with the lows. We all want excitement, euphoria, ecstasy, and nobody wants to experience a sadness or disappointment or guilt, which are the lows. In this video, I want to share that one should develop a kind of neutral position in response to the highs and lows and treat both of them equally. Uh, so, in psychiatry, it is said that there is a euthymic mood, a baseline normal mood, and in our routine life, we experience little bit of highs and little bit of lows, and which is normal human experience. Beyond that, it becomes a disorder, like a fixed spectrum. If you go beyond that in the highs, then it is hypomania or mania. If you go into the lows, then it is a dysthymia or a depression. If there is a frequent swing, then it is a cyclothymia or maybe rapid cycler. So understand that there is a baseline mood and there is a fixed spectrum of high and low which you can manage according to your capacity. Beyond that, the highs are as dangerous as low. Let me repeat it. The highs could be as dangerous as the lows, and I tell you why. Understand this analogy that a person is having a 6 feet height, right? Automatically, even without the awareness of the person would be having an equal length of a shadow. A 4 feet person will have a short shadow, a 6 feet person will automatically have a long shadow. The point that I want to convey is that the mind, which has the capacity to go to highs as high as possible, the same mind automatically develops a tendency to go into the equally deep low. And it is scientific. In bipolar disorder, the chances of suicidality and impulsivity is very high as compared to the unipolar depression, right? So when you want to chase the highs, you want to experience ecstasy and euphoria by consuming a drug, right? You are automatically buying into this contract unknowingly that you are signing for an extremely equal and opposite low as well, right? And that is why after consuming the drug, very often after the wave of euphoria passes, the person experiences a very deep low, which is as equal uh, as compared to the range of the euphoria that the person experienced. So there is, the first thing is that there is a risk for equal and opposite low which you might cannot manage, right? Heights you might manage, but you do not know that you have the capacity to manage the equal and opposite low as well. So this is one risk. Second risk is that when you experience a very overwhelming, very powerful high, euphoria or ecstasy or elation or excitement, something you experience overwhelming, it gets registered inside your brain, right? And when that wave of high passes and you settle down to the stability, the mind perceives it as a deficit, and then the memory automatically comes into your mind, and then you want to re-experience the same euphoria or ecstasy that you experienced last time, and therefore this craving generates. Therefore the chase generates, the hunt and search for re experiencing the same high that you experienced, it generates. Problem is that it develops a psychological dependency on that stimulus from which you obtain that high. Then there is a risk that you would want it more and more in terms of amount, you want it more and more in terms of time frequency, right? And there is every risk that you would boycott all your other responsibilities of life as well, and this one single thing that gave you euphoria becomes a center of life, and you want to have it and have it more and more often in order to experience the euphoria, because you can't manage the equal and opposite low. So this is another risk, that whatever gives you very high euphoria, overwhelming euphoria, is making you kind of psychologically dependent on you, right? And it has an potency of giving you an equal and opposite low as well, right? The third thing, example that I want to give is of relationships, right? That very often people say that in idioms and phrases and expressions are there in every culture, that the person who will give you love, the same person will give you an equal and opposite hurt. Actually, it is not the person which is giving you the love and gives you the hate. You kind of develop an equation with that person, and you kind of use them for obtaining the ecstasy and the euphoria, right? And therefore, when the person goes away from your life or dies or whatever, you automatically, your mind gives you an equal and opposite hurt and disappointment and frustration and sadness. So this example of relationship, I wanted to share it with you. So what is the take home message then? What should one do? One should not chase the highs of life, one should not look for excitement in life. I am not saying that. What I'm trying to say is, develop a neutral position in context to the highs and lows, right? They both have their plus and minus point, right? The plus point of euphoria is that you experience pleasure. The negative point of euphoria is that it has a tendency to give you equal and opposite low and make you psychologically dependent, right? Similarly, with the lows, right? The negative point is that the sadness and melancholia and all the lows are unpleasant in nature. That is the cons. But the pros are also there. The low is also having a pros. For example, that any kind of sadness or disappointment or frustration you are experiencing in your life, underlying that emotion there is a lesson, there is a message which you have to intuitively and wisely pick up, that this sadness wants to teach me what, this disappointment or frustration is telling me what message does it want to give me. So the lows are having plus point as well, right? Therefore, highs equal to lows. Both are having plus point and minus point, and therefore, what you must do is develop a skill of developing a neutral position in face of highs as well as the lows, right? So, there is no point in chasing one and avoiding another. Live your life normally and let the high come on its own and let the low come on its own, and you maintain a neutral position, right? That you, so that you can manage, it is within your range, right? You don't go out of control. If a high comes in your life, if a wave of excitement and enthusiasm and elation or ecstasy or euphoria or whatever high comes in your life, try to along with maintaining a neutral position, try to develop a sense of awareness. Let the wave experience and be aware of this wave passing through. Let the wave pass through your body and mind, and just be aware of what is happening inside you. When you become aware, you kind of uh, don't you stop identifying yourself with that. You no longer become one with that euphoria. You no longer become enmeshed with the euphoria. You kind of position yourself separately as an awareness and the euphoria, a wave that is passing through your body and mind, right? So develop this position of awareness. The usefulness of this is that when the lows will come in your life, when sadness or frustration or crisis will come into your life, the same awareness practice you can apply to that as well, right? So this is always useful, because then you will not get consumed by the sadness or frustration or depression, and you can maintain a position of neutral awareness, a detached observer position, right? You can maintain, so that you don't get consumed, right, by the sadness or profound melancholia, because you have already had developed the skill of maintaining the same position of a detached observer when the euphoria entered in your life, right? So this is a good practice that you can experience in your life. And not just highs and lows, any kind of emotion that you experience, disappointment, guilt, frustration, betrayal, or sadness, or happiness, or excitement, they all are ultimately emotion. It's a whole spectrum, and the umbrella is emotion. Any kind of emotion that you experience, don't get fused with that, don't get enmeshed with that or one with that. Develop a kind of neutral position. It's always a good practice, so that you won't get consumed by it. And this can develop only when you treat highs and lows equally. It can never develop that you want to fuse with the highs and you want to avoid the lows, right? It never works, right? So this is what I want to tell you, that the highs and lows are kind of equal. They both are ultimately emotions, and develop a neutral position. Both are having pros and cons, and both could be equally dangerous as well. So this is my perspective on the highs and lows. Share your views with me, and uh, stay happy, stay blessed, right?